I really can't believe how popular video game remasters have become, and the industry is literally just trying to milk them for everything that they've got. And granted, they add new visuals and new game mechanics and quality of life improvements as well, but the industry is at a point where remasters are becoming more prevalent and outshining a lot of newer titles. And granted, it does give us a way to relive these magical moments while playing these classic games, and we're looking at the new visuals in the way that we imagined that they used to look. And then we've also got the angle that people who have never experienced these titles now get to experience these titles. So it's a whole whirlwind of justifications and is it right, is it wrong? It's a whole thing. And this trend does bring forth a lot of questions, especially in the line of preservation versus innovation. And I know that this example gets brought up tons and tons of times, but do we really need 3 versions of The Last of Us Part 1? It just doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand why Naughty Dog and other game studios, for example, are thinking that this is a viable way of continuing revenue for the studio. It baffles me that no one needs to play The Last of Us Part 1 on 3 different occasions. And we didn't need a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, yet we got one, and we definitely don't need a Days Gone remastered, and we're gonna get one. And it just doesn't make any sense for me, because the PS5, for example, is backwards compatible with the PS4. So there's no necessity for a remaster because the original version is playable on the newer hardware. And so games that were released like 1 generation ago, really there's no justification. But then you look at something like Oblivion, for example, which came out 2 generations ago, visually looked awful, but has been brought back for modern audiences with brand new visuals, gameplay improvements, and everything under the sun. And looking at gameplay from the original Oblivion to the remaster is like night and day, but when you look at these needless remasters like Days Gone and like Horizon, like The Last of Us, the differences are so minute that it almost seems pointless. As a collective community, the industry is purely just pumping out remakes because it's a safer bet than trying out something new. It's just a fact. Because presumably it was a smash hit, so why not just try and re-release it with a few extra polygons here and there? And remasters add to that preservation of the gaming industry. I mean, if you think about the N64 and the SNES and the PlayStation 1, there are tons of games on those consoles that most people aren't able to play. And yes, you have PC emulation, but there is a majority of people who are on consoles who don't have access to that kind of hardware because they don't allow it. And so older games that are brought forward for remasters are very important for people who were never able to access those titles, or who are very unlikely to be able to access those titles, yet are perceived to be really fantastic games. And I understand that like Final Fantasy VII is deemed to be such a great game, but I doubt that many people would have gone back to the original to play it, and so instead Square Enix had brought forward a remaster or a remake or whatever the jargon is these days. And so many people were able to actually experience the world of Final Fantasy VII, and then they could say, yeah, it is actually a really great game. And remasters are meant to be the most polished versions of the original games. If you think of the Spyro Reignited trilogy and the Crash Bandicoot Insane trilogy, both titles on the PS1 but came out on the PS4 and looked absolutely phenomenal. Not to mention there were so many quality of life improvements that made the game feel the best that it possibly could be, and that's what I think remasters really need to be. And remasters are also a great place to fix issues that were present in the original game, like bugs or potentially pacing issues of the story. And I think that those 2 games did really well in representing that classic feeling while also putting a modern twist on it and making small little changes to make the overall experience a lot better. And for older remasters, I'm all for it. If they're not easily accessible by everyone else, then go for it, remake them, I would love that. But when a game's like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 10 years old, I think you need to kind of step back, because at that point most people are just going to see it as a cash grab for the studio. And some of these remasters aren't even worth the money that they charge for them. With the Grand Theft Auto trilogy that got remastered, the special, whatever it is, the amount of bugs and broken visuals and the graphical style that they went for were absolutely slaughtered by reviewers and gamers alike. And it just proves that if a remaster isn't done right and with the proper love and care, then it is just going to crash and burn. And although that's unfortunate and it was an older title, unfortunately that love wasn't there and the polish wasn't there. And I'm so certain that Rockstar definitely thought that they had something in the bag with that trilogy. They thought it was going to sell like hotcakes. But unfortunately, with all the bugs and everything like that, it really didn't, and it just burnt up in a ball of flames and never to return. And I forgot to mention, like, if the remaster doesn't even include, like, massive changes, if they're, like, tiny, minuscule changes, the price points are generally going to be the price of a full-price AAA title, and it's just not worth it. It's really not. It's really not. If you've got the original, you're better off playing that. Whereas if it is a completely overhauled experience, then it justifies it just a little bit more. But either way, it might kind of seem like is it even worth it? For me personally, if it's like an old game that has been said to be one of the greatest of all times, then go ahead, remaster it. I would love that. Please do that. But if it's like a couple of years old, then really what's the point? There is no justification for game studios to be re-releasing games that came out a couple of years ago. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Especially the way that the industry is turning with backwards compatibility. I mean, we don't know if the next generation is going to be backwards compatible on the console side of things, so there's kind of that leeway there. But with the current situation, games that came out on the PS4 just don't need it. They really, really don't. So please, game studios, stop remastering games and then charging me £70 just to play them. And I would really love to hear what you think about video game remasters, because it's such a divisive topic and many people are really far on one side or the other when it comes to the justification of remakes. So yes, please do let me know. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.